Well, soft-roaders might be all the rage these days, but if your personal life or your work life requires something a little bit more hardcore, to get to places like this, for example, or to tow a heavy load, then you'll need something like these. And with that in mind, we've moved our best four-wheel drive category to our new Commercial Vehicle of the Year awards. The quartet of contenders are all extremely capable bush bashers, but equally as adept around town. Well, at least three of them are. The Mercedes-Benz 300 CDI Professional has a much narrower focus and is ideally suited for the man on the land. Unlike the G63 AMG that has become a cult icon for the rich and famous like Hollywood celebs and our own eastern suburb socialites, this is a civilian version of the same vehicles Benz supplies to the Australian Army. As such, it's as rugged as they come, built on a stronger ladder frame and featuring just the basics to get the job done. There's none of the luxuries you'd normally expect from the three-pointed star. In fact, it comes just with manual air conditioning, heated front seats and a CD player audio system, and that's it. But it will go absolutely anywhere, thanks to a permanent all-wheel drive transmission with 3 differential locks, sturdy off-road tyres and generous wheel articulation. You can even stand on the bonnet, it's that tough. The 3-litre turbo diesel V6 isn't the most powerful, producing 140 kilowatts and 400 newton metres, and it has an antiquated 5-speed automatic gearbox that makes it feel a little lethargic out on the open road. It's also pretty hard work behind the wheel, with live axles at both ends and an old-school steering box. The G-Wagon is charming in its simplicity, but in this contest, it is a bit too one-dimensional compared to its rivals.
I really admire the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon for what it can do. Unfortunately, what it can do is really one thing. I mean, one-trick pony is a very harsh criticism, but it's verging on that. It's not as good on the road as the other vehicles. It's not as comfortable. It doesn't have cruise control or power windows, for instance. Although it's extremely good off-road, I think its on-road manners and its lack of equipment, particularly at the price, really play against it.
You get the impression with the G-Wagon that there's not a whole lot that's going to stop it. It is seriously capable. But at the same time, it's got compromises, a heck of a lot of compromises. The big issue with the G-Wagon is what it's like on road. Most people, when they're heading off-road, they're going to need to sit on a freeway or a country road for a fair distance. This is not the car to do it in.
The Toyota LandCruiser is equally as much of a four-wheel drive icon. But the 200 series, even though it has been around for the better part of a decade, looks, feels and drives much more like a modern car than the G-Wagon. Tested here in VX grade and costing nearly $100,000, the 8-seat Landy fuses its four-wheel drive capabilities with a more car-like character that makes it easy to live with, whether it's as a work or a family vehicle. The cabin is spacious, equipped with all the latest comforts and conveniences, and feels like it's been screwed together with absolute precision. It's comfortable and quiet out on the open road, but it never hides the fact that it is a very, very big car, especially when driving in the city. But it is such an effortless machine to drive anywhere, thanks to a twin-turbo 4.5-litre diesel V8 that drives a permanent all-wheel drive transmission through a slick 8-speed automatic. It will easily tow heavy loads. It will take you further off the beaten track than almost anything else. And with long-range fuel tanks, it's got plenty of range between fills.
I'm really not sure what you'd have to do or how clumsy you would have to be to stop the 200 series in the bush. It is a mighty machine. It just wants to trundle on. It'll tackle anything. The only problem is, around town, it's can be too much vehicle. The engine's awesome, the suspension works beautifully, it's comfortable, it's well equipped. It's not even badly priced, but it's so much vehicle all of the time when probably you don't need that much truck.
The LandCruiser has size on its side, and for a lot of people that counts. It's also extremely good at towing up to 3.5 tonnes, and you get the impression it's going to do that so easily. The LandCruiser is incredibly quiet and refined. It's a really comfortable way to while away the miles.
The Ford Everest is our reigning best four-wheel drive and a former overall Car of the Year winner. We love it for its off-road capability, family-friendly cabin, decent on-road manners and good safety. While nothing has changed with the car itself, putting a greater focus on its capacity as a work vehicle highlighted some shortcomings, especially in the range-topping titanium model we're testing, which runs on 20-inch tyres that aren't as well suited to hardcore four-wheel drive work. Owners can, however, choose smaller 18-inch tyres with bigger sidewalls free of charge if serious off-road work is a priority, which Ford should be commended for. They should also be proud of the Everest in general, as it remains a great 7-seat four-wheel drive, which shouldn't be surprising considering it is based on the Ranger Ute, but features a unique coil spring rear suspension setup. With that comes a grunty 3.2 litre 5-cylinder turbo diesel that generates 143 kilowatts and 470 newton metres, and an easy to use part-time 4-wheel drive transmission with a 6-speed automatic gearbox. It is a great car for the suburbs, particularly with its suite of active safety systems, and it is no slouch when it comes time to escaping the urban jungle either.
A couple of things worry me about the Everest. The 20-inch wheels are just really not suitable for off-road use. I know there are optional 18s and you definitely go for those. The other thing is the price. It's in that form, in that titanium form, it is rather expensive for what it is, particularly with the cars it's playing against.
I love the throttle response on the Everest. It makes it pretty easy when you're doing this sort of off-roading, and it also works well around town. One issue with the Everest is the size of the fuel tank. It's not particularly big and the engine isn't particularly frugal, so you end up having to refuel a bit more often than you would in other off-roaders.
But the one that can do it all the best is this, the Toyota Prado. The thing about the Prado that really sets it apart is that you know it can go anywhere, particularly in Australia, and Toyota's reputation for reliability is second to none, but also its dealer network. This car can go anywhere, and if you do get into trouble, you've got that trusted element behind you, and that counts for a hell of a lot. As for the car itself, well, it is built pretty damn tough. The 4-wheel drive system is relatively easy to use, and it absolutely goes anywhere. There's great vision out the front, it's got good entry and departure angles, and plenty of ground clearance. It's also got a huge 150 litre fuel tank, so if you're towing or going on long trips out in the middle of the outback, you know you can get to the next fuel station pretty damn easily. But even to live with every other day of the week, well, this thing, well, it's a little bouncy on this road, but to live with every other day of the week when you're not doing work or doing stuff like this, the Prado is reasonably refined. The cabin is nice and plush. It's got some really cool elements like this cooled center console. You can stick a couple of bottles of water in there and they'll stay with you all day nice and cold. There's great storage space around the cabin. The seats are nice and comfy, and on road this thing has got pretty decent manners. The Prado is powered by a 2.8 litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel that uses an average of 8 litres per 100 k's to produce outputs of 130 kilowatts and 450 newton metres, driving a 4-wheel drive transmission through a 6-speed automatic gearbox. The engine's nice and quiet, the 6-speed automatic gearbox is fairly refined, and the way it drives on the road has an element of comfort and convenience that some 4-wheel drives like this can't simply match. And all in all, that means the Prado will simply crawl up hills like this, but also cruise through the suburbs. You can use this car for work, you can use this car for play, and you can use this car as a family vehicle. And that's why it's our best 4x4 of the year.